So Deirdre Shigano-Miller is the Healthy Living Program Coordinator at Kikandaso-Kamik Elementary School. She's a member of the Chippewas of Naywash Unceded First Nations and lives in beautiful Nayashiniming, Ontario, located on the Bruce Peninsula. With over 17 years of experience working with her community's children and youth, the DD, as she's known to students and families, has helped to lead numerous food security initiatives, which includes home, school, and community gardens, as well as the elementary school's edible beneficial landscapes. She's been the coordinator for the Nayashiniming Healthy Living Program for the past 8 years. She's a firm believer that lasting change will come as a result of young people being given opportunities to learn about food sustainability and to become active participants in their community's discussions about food sovereignty. And she says, quote, "Our young people have been our greatest champions and activators for change. They take what they have learned and passionately share it with their families and others in our community. They are unafraid and believe that anything is possible when we set our minds to it and work together. We'd all do well to take their lead." So I'm going to turn this over to Deirdre, who will share learnings from her perspective as First Nations leading programs in her community. Deirdre, over to you.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. Appreciate that. I think we're ahead of schedule, so that's good. Does that mean I can talk for half an hour? 15 minutes? Just hearing Alejandro and Larry's sharing and presentation, you know, what comes to mind is just how connected we are, no matter where we are in the world. And, you know, just seeing Alejandro's presentation, it reminded me so much of what we're doing here in Nayashiniming. You know, just sewing skills and just a real focus on our children and our people. And I think just empowering and equipping them with the skills that they need in life. So my focus will be just to share a little bit about what we've been doing here in Nayashiniming surrounding food security, primarily looking at gardening. And a lot of that comes from our partnership with CFTC. So really, I want to refer to, I think, what a good partnership looks like as I give this presentation. So lots of pictures. I'm an elementary school teacher by trade. And I don't know, I always like seeing lots of beautiful photos whenever I'm in a workshop or a conference, so that hopefully you will get a bit of an idea of what's taking place here within our community, in our nation of Chippewas of Naywash. So the first slide is, it just gives a little description. Next, sorry, Kevin. And our program is the Minno-Bimadzuen Healthy Living Program. And Minno-Bimadzuen means the good life. And it really focuses, we understand that we're not just physical beings, that we have an emotional part of us, that we're mental and spiritual. And so right from the get-go, when we partnered with Canadian Feed the Children, we went from being just a nutrition program that started within the school to actually a more community-based. After a few years, we really focused on using the school as a hub of engagement to kind of grow the program, because the immediate need was child hunger. And that's what was the main and primary focus, that, you know, we knew kids were coming to school hungry, that parents were going without meals so that their children could eat. And so we, in partnership with CFTC and other programs like Breakfast Clubs of Canada and Ontario Student Nutrition, we've been able to really build a well sustained, you know, fully rounded nutrition program. And but we knew we had to not just remain there. We really had to take ownership of this healthy living program and really look at the types of foods that we have access to and growing our own food. So with the support of Canadian Feed the Children, I was able to come on board in a part-time capacity as the Healthy Living Coordinator, and really help to develop a program that was holistic, in the sense that we were really looking at meeting those physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual needs. Our program focuses on 4 areas of engagement. That is the school nutrition, like I just mentioned, community nutrition education, which started in the school, but also really trying to get, whether it's, meals on a budget, or, healthy lunch ideas, healthy cooking to the families and other members in our community, really just trying to give our members access, I think, and ideas just to see what's possible concerning food. The third area that we focus on as well is our local food systems, understanding that we are in an area that isn't necessarily prime for gardening, but we have so much natural food sources here. And that's something that we really focused on in the school, is seasonal harvesting, responsible harvesting, sustainability with those different food sources. Whether it's wild leeks, morels, puffballs, our apples, our wild apples, fishing, hunting, all of those things that we try to teach our youth and give them opportunities to learn how to harvest, because the reality is maybe, they were never taught that. So that's something that we really work at within the school, is identifying our local food sources. And we really connect with our seniors and our elders within our community, and give them opportunities as well to have that intergenerational sharing time with the youth. And our last area of focus is land-based education. And and just, I think what Alejandro and Larry were mentioning is just what happens when we reconnect with the land, when we kind of get out of the buildings and we get our feet just connected to the earth again. And I really see that as a spiritual act. A big focus that we look at is not only growing food and local food systems, but also we give our youth opportunity to care for our species at risk within our community. And my dad is the coordinator of the species at risk program here in Naywash. And so he's really generous just to come whenever I need him to come. And we go for nature walks, we go for medicine walks with the youth. We have a birding program within the school. And it really gives our young people an opportunity to care for something other than themselves, that they're, caring for our flora and fauna species that are at risks. And it really gives them a sense of purpose, and realizing that we are connected to the natural realm that we walk upon, and how important it is that we take care of the earth and everything that the Creator has put upon it. So that's a huge focus within our program as well. So I'm just gonna, we'll go through some photos and just kind of talk about the gardening programs that started with our expansion. So in 2014, with CFTC, we really wanted to expand into a more community-based program, but always with the school as that hub of engagement. So, we expanded the plan, and we started gardening at the school. So you can see in 2015 that we had some boxes. I was really happy. These were our first garden boxes ever. We actually got them from the Salvation Army Trade Start program. And it's a program that teaches just youth at risk, maybe a youth that are coming out of high school. They didn't quite know where they wanted to go, and give them opportunities maybe for carpentry skills. And so some of our graduates, like I call them my school babies, like that I knew them when, and they've graduated, and they're kind of in that transition time between high school and what they want to do as an adult. And some of our young men were actually the ones that built these boxes as part of that Trade Star program. So they delivered them and they were so proud to bring them back. And so these are our very first garden boxes at Kikindosogamic. Next. And you can just see the kids were really eager to, till up that land and, just to fill those boxes. And to us, it was really huge to get them, into the dirt, like from start to finish, right? To see how much work it is, and starting and talking with our seniors. Everyone in our community had gardens previously, and it's something that kind of just stopped happening. And I think the one thing about COVID is that it just reawakened our awareness that we needed to take hold of our responsibility of growing our own food. So at the school, the kids, you can just flip through them, Kevin, until we get to, just so that people can see just things that are possible within schools. The kids started the plants, and it goes along with their the curriculum as well. And so this is our very first garden kind of coming to fruition. You can see the garden markers there. Miskodisiman, our green beans. We really try to, whenever we can, to use the Anishinaabe. Harvest time, our first harvest. And nothing was sweeter. I had the staff at the school just saying, when the kids came back in the fall, they were digging carrots out of the garden and taking snap peas off the plant. And we had some of the staff saying, like, is that all right? I said, yeah, they planted it. Let them taste it. And what we found is because that they were the ones that had planted it. They were the ones that watered. They were the ones that weeded, that they were willing to take more risks when it came to eating these foods, because a lot of them had never tried these foods before. And we were getting reports from the parents saying, yeah, they're asking for, snap peas when we go shopping, or they're asking for, this, and I said, well, because they grew it at the garden. And next, Kevin, just to the edible beneficial landscapes. So our gardens are still going at the school. It's really been great to just, kind of walk with the kids and get them started, but, everybody knows what needs to be done now. So the focus that we turned to in 2018 was edible beneficial landscapes. Next two. Because what we noticed at the school was, when the school was built and these landscapes were put in, it was all ornamental. And I personally just had the vision, like, is there something else that we can do? And, and I'd heard a lot of things about edible landscapes. And so it was a dream and a vision to have our school landscapes transformed into something completely beneficial. Whether for food, for medicines, or for traditional uses. There's a lot of plants that we use in traditional dyeing, in our traditional crafts like sweetgrass. And so all of those things, we wanted the school to be surrounded by those types of plants. Next. You can see the grade 7 and 8s here. Back in 2018, that they had the unenviable task of removing all the ornamental plants. One comment that always stuck with me is that there was a young girl that said, because the roots, like some of these plants that they had put in the ground, the roots were so invasive, and they just spread throughout the entire beds. And the one girl just looked at me, she's like, this is so hard. I said, I know. And she said, like, just to pull it out, and it's just everywhere. And I said, yeah, it would have been a lot easier if they'd have asked us what we wanted when they put the landscape in. And I think that's, a lesson there that, it would have been a lot easier if, the people that were designing this and putting in the landscapes actually said, what do you want in these gardens? Rather than just kind of plunking in what they thought. It was ornamental, it looked nice, but it had no purpose. And that is a lesson that I really try to teach our young people, is that, we need to be part of the conversation and not just kind of like, oh, here's something that looks nice, there you go. And it was a lot harder to tear everything out than it would have been to, to sit down and just, design the landscape ourselves. So I'm so appreciative of our young people that just tore up all of these beds. And we left things, we brought in the species at risk just to see if there were things that we could use. And we really wanted to put in things that they're native plants to our area. So that's just a kind of some pictures there of things that we use traditionally. And the next slide, you'll see wild strawberries. I mean, that's a huge part of my childhood personally. And I don't think I put the picture in, but it's just spread. Like from 2018 to now, like these beds are just full of wild strawberries. And one of the staff members sent me pictures of the youth, and they're just in there. They're in there picking the wild strawberries at recess. They come in the summertime with their families. I take my son there, and I see other families there just sitting, in our moon gardens there, and they just sit on the rocks and they pick and they eat. And that was part of it, right? We wanted it to be something that, provided a food source that brought back those memories, I think, for parents and grandparents. We had grandparents come because this food, my grandmother tells stories about when she picked it as a little girl. And so we're really bringing that to the school area and all that teaching. Next. That's just my son, he was picking. You can skip to pollinators. So we did an expansion 2019 for our gardens for the edible landscapes, really promoting plants that would help pollinate. We did have some partnership for grants with this type of initiative, and to get additional fruit and like gooseberries. And so we really filled in the beds from the year before. Planting trees, we had a bunch of apple trees. Just the one thing that I just want to touch on when we're talking about partnerships is I think the importance of when you're partnering with a community. It was kind of hard for this particular grant, just because we knew there was plants that weren't covered, that they kind of went through the list and said, no, we're not covering that. No, we're not covering that. No, we're not covering that. And it's like, even though we had kind of met with our species at risk and said, like, this is beneficial, this is not going to be invasive, so that was just kind of like an eye opener that I think sometimes people don't understand, like, especially within our communities. We really don't want to have invasive species in our community. And so, certain grants will cover certain plants, but we don't necessarily want them in our gardens. So that was just one example that we had a hard time with this particular area, just because, after the fact, we had to go through the list again, and there was a lot of things that weren't covered. So we had to do it out of pocket in another area. So, but for the most part, it really has brought together the community. You can just flip through these, Kevin, and I'll. The front entranceway of our school is really important. We had local communities, local program come in and bring volunteers. There's our kids planting trees. And we had 2 gardening mentors from young men from our community that were doing a program. and they came in to show them how to plant the trees. This one is a local a community program that brought the volunteers in. They tore up that entire bed. At the end here, we're planting sweetgrass. And I can't tell you how many comments we had of people just coming in and just saying what a beautiful smell it was when they're coming into the school and they can smell that sweetgrass. And people kind of joke around like, oh, I'm going to come here and harvest because there's no poison ivy here. And because everywhere in our community, there's poison ivy. But I said, you're welcome anytime. Like, we really want to, it's a school landscape, but we really want people to understand that this is for the entire community. So you can just go to small gardens, Kevin. Like I said, the COVID has really taught us, I think, has awakened us to the need to be responsible for our food systems and what we're planting. One of the issues that we do face here is that we are on a lot of rock, we are on a lot of clay, and and I think some people just don't know where to start. So in 2020, we partnered with a lot of programs within our community and to do a garden supply giveaway. And that included soil, growing bags, seeds, starter plants, and education on how to small container garden. So you can just flip through these, Kevin, because I'm just going to zip through this one. This was huge. We probably have, about 275 households in Naywash. And through this giveaway in 2020, during COVID, we had over 150 people that started gardening. So that was like huge. It's over half of our population that did some type of gardening in 2020 during COVID. And for the majority of them, it was their first time in gardening. So we really tried to support them, which, took some creativity during COVID with all the restrictions. But it was something that, you can just flip through it, Kevin. They're just pictures. But once things started, as we kind of walked with our community, and we were just getting so much feedback of what was possible, right? They were saying, like, I didn't think we could garden on my property, and like me, that's my property there, and I'm on all clay. So just being able to see what is possible, to try it. And this year, we had people wanting to expand their home gardens, asking questions, and they really gained confidence in what they were able to grow for themselves and for their families. So many reports of the kids. I had parents sending me pictures of kids, just like, look at their peas have come in. Oh, they're picking their carrots, and so that, to me, that's just what it's all about. Is not saying what's not possible, what is possible, what can we do. And we're just really seeing just our community flourish in home gardens. This is just an update of the school garden that you see there. And so we're continuing that. And I just want to close then with our latest initiative is the Naywash Community Garden. And this was something that was really huge, because up to that point, it was overseen by maybe one position, but just funding fell through, and people didn't know if it was going to take place. So this year, a bunch of programs within Naywash just said, what are we going to do? And so we contacted actually a couple. They're both horticulturists. They're the ones that supported us during the our edible landscape initiative at the school. And so I contacted them and said, would you be willing to kind of sit down with us and look at a plan? Like this husband and wife, they plan community gardens. They work with Salvation Army, they work with community living, and their heart is truly to see like every community have a garden. And so they were willing to come in with us. And what I appreciated about their partnership is the humility that, even though this is their life, they have their own business, their own gardening business. This is their profession. This is what they went to school for. But whenever they came in to work with us, they always said, what do you want to see? What do you want to see for your community? They never once said, this is how you should do it, right? This is a plan. This is what you should plant. This, they never once said that. There was such a humility. There was such just the trueness of coming alongside us, and just what do you want to see and how can we support you in that? And that's how they were. That's always been our experience with CFTC. And so when you're looking at what authentic partnership looks like, that's what I would say is, you know, if you're looking to partner with Indigenous communities, I would always say, come here, come talk with us, sit down with us, and really have that attitude of humility. Is just how can we support you, and just start the conversation. So we've been able with their support, this couple and all the community programs, we were able to plant our community garden. And you can just flip through, Kevin, that's good. And again, the Anishinaabe MON, these were made at the school. And harvesting time, this was the best time, because we had the students go over to the garden. They were helping out, and so they were part of like planting and weeding, and but we made sure then that they went over to harvest. So you know, the food was distributed. We had a little pop-up garden stand. It went out through the health center. It went out through the school, and we had an open house as well at the garden. And it was really the first main event that has taken place since COVID. And we had so many elders and seniors come out and just walk through the garden. And some of them were actually crying. There was, you know, just elders that were crying because they were so happy to see the garden started, but I think just to be able to get out again and to walk, you know, through the community garden, walk on the land again. A lot of them have just been shut up at home. So we're so happy to see this. And it's just been such a positive experience to bring people together safely. I mean, we can socially distance, we're outside. And I think it just has really reaffirmed what we are able to do as a community, with the volunteers, with the youth, with the families, with our programs within Naywash, and with our extended our extended partners, you know, outside of the community. And you know, I always say, you know, I just don't come in CFTC. If I say that in the school, all the kids know what I mean. They know who CFTC is, right? Because you are an extended part of our family. And so they understand that. And so, you know, it's not just kind of coming in once, you know, and that's it, and then taking off. It's really that taking time to walk, you know, through the process, and, you know, and to celebrate, right? To celebrate in our successes. So, you know, there's just future plans. Like we're not done, right? We start small. That's my motto. Start small, do it right, then grow. So that's our hope for the future, is that we can continue to grow the gardens. We've had people considering small livestock within their community, chickens, goats on their own property. And so we want to support them in that. You know, how can we do that? Through education, just kind of examining what is needed, and just to believe that anything is possible. So I'll close with that. That's a picture of my son. We put him to work, and just, yeah, miigwech for, I tried to go fast.
Thank you so much, Dee. You'll see in the chat, there's lots of comments saying how very interesting this was, and you know, I just saw the size of that spaghetti squash. I was impressed. Mine were not that big this year. So I think, you know, really hearing some really important messages from Dee in terms of the importance of being part of the conversation, the authentic partnerships that they've been working in terms of the humility, coming alongside, asking what do you want to see. I think some really important messaging around authentic partnerships, and also messaging we've heard in the other two presentations too around the connection to the land, land-based education. We've heard quite a bit over the last few presentations too about intergenerational, the importance of intergenerational relationships, but these thinking of people as whole beings, and working with children, working with women. So I think this has been very interesting to hear the last three presentations.